So Ben Shapiro did a segment on Kanye West titled, I Want Ye to Get Help. And Charlamagne the God also spoke about this again. There was a time in the recent past where Charlamagne said, I think this guy might kill himself. Charlamagne is reiterating that. And now you have Ben Shapiro, who's also saying similar things. So let's watch, and I'll break it down as we go. This might be one of the first segments in secular talk history where it's mostly total agreement with Ben and I. Let's watch.
What we've been watching for the past few weeks is the obvious mental breakdown of one of the most famous people on earth, Kanye West, who now wishes to be known as Ye. What we've been watching here is obviously a manic episode from a person who has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder. I've been saying this since the very beginning. Several things can be true at once. One, Ye West, Kanye West, he is a Jew hater. Pretty obviously, there's no way to avoid that conclusion. The stuff that he's been ranting and raving over the past several weeks demonstrates that he doesn't just hate specific Jews, he hates the Jews. The Jews are the problem, according to Kanye West. He has been spewing Der Stürmer, Nazi-esque anti-Semitism for weeks, and last night on Alex Jones's show, he made that perfectly clear. So that is true. It is also true that Kanye West is a person with bipolar disorder, and this is a person in the middle of a manic episode because there's no other way to explain his behavior. It's not performance art. It's not some sort of rational argument on behalf of hatred of Jews. He leaves that to Nick Fuentes. The fact is that Ye West is in the middle of a mental breakdown, and we're watching it on the world's most public stage. It is the most famous person to have a mental breakdown probably since Howard Hughes publicly.
Yeah, so I think he's right on all that. Whenever I make the point that Kanye has been diagnosed with bipolar disorder and it's untreated, people say to me, like, don't excuse his anti-Semitism. But what they need to understand is you are interpreting the point that I'm making incorrectly. I'm not saying he has severe untreated bipolar disorder and that explains the anti-Semitism and that like mitigates its harm, you know, or anything like that. The argument is both things are true at the same time. Like Ben says, he is a Jew hater. He is anti-Semitic. That's a belief he would probably have whether or not he was bipolar. But the fact that he's bipolar and it's untreated sort of ramps it up, makes him scream it through a megaphone at the mountaintop. And also, one of the symptoms of bipolar disorder, and particularly the manic part of it, is paranoia. So you think everybody's out to get you, and Kanye West has connected the dots in his personal life about how, oh, I had these Jewish executives who fucked me over. And so he takes that to then extrapolate to Jews in general and act like they're all involved in this, you know, this cabal and this backroom smoke-filled conspiracy where they're just trying to like take down not just him, but like the country, right? Or the world. So both things are true at the same time. I mean, it's a fact he has bipolar disorder. It's a fact that it's untreated. It's a fact he's going through a manic episode right now. And it's also a fact that he's an anti-Semite. It's not that the bipolar disorder excuses the anti-Semitism. I think he'd have that belief regardless. It would just be sort of toned down a little bit if he wasn't going through a manic episode right now. These might be thoughts that Kanye had like in private and perhaps not as extreme, right? But you got to understand that to point out the fact of his mental health does not excuse the anti-Semitism. Anyway, I just wanted to address that because that's one of the common reactions when you say, oh, he's going through a mental breakdown. People go, don't excuse his anti-Semitism behind the veil of like he's just crazy. That's not what we're doing. Both things can be true at the same time.
And that says something about how our media cover mental breakdowns. It says something about how American society treats madness. We seem to treat really outlying insanity as a form of rationality. And meanwhile, we treat kind of borderline normal behavior as mentally ill. So we tend to overdiagnose, for example, depression, anxiety, ADHD, right? Things that are sort of on the borderline of normalcy. We tend to overprescribe for those things. Those things exist. Some people need prescription medication for that, but we tend to overprescribe that. And we wildly underserve people who have serious mental disorders, ranging from bipolar disorder to schizophrenia.
See, this, I don't necessarily agree with this. The point I would make to Ben is, one of the reasons why Kanye has gotten away to this point, acting like he is that we have this myth of meritocracy in this country. This idea that if you're a billionaire, if you made it to the top, if you're a big celebrity, if everybody knows you, you must have done something right. So you must not just be a genius in one particular sense. In Kanye's instance, it's music, right? You're a genius across the board. Like, you must be just, you know, amazing in every imaginable way. And so that mental illness is viewed as, oh, he's just eccentric. You know, he's just different. He speaks in coded ways that you need to try to understand. And that's just his brilliance. So I think that this myth of meritocracy leads to people watching how he acts, and they sort of put onto it, project onto it what they want it to be, which is like, well, if he's Kanye West, he's the Kanye West, so there must be some sort of rationale, logic for how we've gotten to this place. So I don't necessarily agree with that point. I think that in order for him to diagnose this correctly, he would have to sort of examine his own worldview here, because he believes in capitalism, he believes in, meritocracy, and so it is that the myth of meritocracy is part of the reason why we are where we are, and also he just doesn't have anybody who's close to him now who loves him enough to really keep it real with him and really sort of force him onto the medication.
And we treat that as though it is normal behavior. And finally, while being mad, while being disturbed does not relieve you of responsibility for your Jew hatred, it does suggest that we ought to take the pronouncements of Ye West with a certain lack of seriousness, because this is a person in the middle of an episode. There's no other way to play it. And honestly, I can despise what he is saying, because what he is saying is evil. And I can also recognize that this is a person who needs treatment, not a camera. This person needs treatment, not a set of lights in his face. And there are a lot of people out there who are making a lot of money off of Ye by putting him in front of a camera. There are a lot of people who are cynically utilizing this person's mental breakdown in order to facilitate their own career. And here I'm thinking specifically of Nick.
Well, I will say, just real quick, this is a side point, but it's important. Remember when Kanye West went to the White House when Trump was president, and he was sitting there rambling, talking to Trump, and he was surrounded by media people, and there were all these cameras on him, and people were taking pictures, and he was rambling and jumping from issue to issue, topic to topic, and not really tying it together and making no sense, these disjointed, fragmented thoughts, and speaking very aggressively and passionately. At that point in time, too, he was going through a manic episode. And Ben Shapiro covered it and said he thought it was awesome. He thought it was great. Because at the time, he was able to use that politically to Trump's benefit and to the Republican Party's benefit. So he overlooked a lot of the same things that he's now acknowledging. So I just want to be clear about that, because, look, better late than never, right? Credit where it's due. But it was pretty easy. It was pretty easy to grasp, even at that point, what was happening, and he didn't want to see it because he was able to use it politically for the right's advantage.
Fuentes and Milo Yiannopoulos. There are a bunch of people around Ye who could be attempting to get him the treatment he obviously needs. I'm not here to pathologize people's insane thoughts or evil thoughts. Again, he's sitting across from Nick Fuentes, who routinely engages in evil thoughts. Okay, but Nick Fuentes is not an insane person. Nick Fuentes is not having a mental breakdown. He just thinks evil things. Ye West, after his display over the past week particularly, whatever you thought of him before, whether you thought that he was just an erratic personality who had decided to spew anti-Semitism, or whether you thought that he was perfectly rational, it is obvious over the course of the past several weeks that this is not the case, and has not been the case for a while.
There were a lot of people in Ben's audience after Kanye West went on Tim Pool's show and stormed out when Tim lightly pushed back on the anti-Semitism. There were a lot of people in Ben's audience who were siding with Kanye West. But I read the comments of this video, and now his audience is mostly people being like, okay, yeah, you're right. This guy's fucking crazy.
Ranging from his tweet storm in which he talked about Chris Paul stooping his wife, to his defense of Balenciaga, to the actual appearance on Alex Jones. So we'll start this in order. The only reason I'm playing these clips is because it's important.
Okay. So we already, go watch the segment I did covering the exact same clips. By the way, there's one clip I missed. Somehow he praised Hitler and Nazis like 14 times in one interview. The one I missed was where he does literal Holocaust denial, where he says it's just factually that's not what happened. Hitler didn't kill all those Jews. Definitely wasn't 6 million. So Kanye dove into the deep pool of Holocaust nihilism. And that's the one clip I missed from that interview, which was definitely worthy of showing. But go check out my video on that. I did a long video showing all the clips of him saying, I like Hitler. I love Nazis. There's a lot. He goes, there's a lot of things I love about Hitler. He stresses the words just so you know how much he loves them.
This is mad behavior. This is mentally disturbed behavior. This is not something, if you saw a person on the street doing this, you would understand. This is a mentally disturbed person. If you saw this in the halls of a mental hospital, you would understand. This is a mentally disturbed person. You put him on TV, and suddenly we're supposed to treat it like celebrity behavior. We're supposed to treat every behavior by a celebrity as celebrity behavior, up until the point when they actually do something terrible to themselves. Honestly, that's my great fear here for Ye West, is that if he is in the middle of a manic episode, the depression on the other side of the mania very often is coincident with the level of the mania. So if the mania is really high, the depression is really low. So I would not be surprised, God forbid, something should happen, that Ye should do something to himself, given.
So this is Ben saying, look, he could hurt himself. He could even kill himself. And yeah, if the depression is as severe as this manic episode is, oh boy, he's going to need a lot of help at that point in time. He needs a lot of help now, but the depressive episode is going to be, Oh, it's going to be terrible. So now we have Charlamagne the God. Quote, it's not going to end well. Charlamagne doubles down on prediction Kanye West will be dead soon. Charlamagne the God doubled down on his prediction that Kanye West's recent actions are leading the controversial rapper down a deadly path. Back in October, Charlamagne expressed concern for West after he appeared on Lex Fridman's podcast and spoke about his relationship with God. He need to start really leaning into God because nothing he's doing is of God. Nothing I've seen him do is of God, Charlamagne said back in October. Quote, I hope that this is what helps him to find some real healing because he's clearly hurting, right? And I don't see this ending well. I feel like he's moving like a person who doesn't feel like he's going to be here much longer. You know what I mean? He added. On Friday, following an anti-Semitic-fueled appearance by West on Alex Jones' InfoWars, Charlamagne repeated his concerns. The Breakfast Club crew listened to a portion of the Jones interview in which West did an impression of Benjamin Netanyahu in the style of Elmo from Sesame Street. Quote, man, I've said it once and I'll say it again. Kanye West is moving like a person who doesn't feel like he's going to be here much longer. And it's sad that folks are just watching this like it's normal. That man needs to be committed to an institution, Charlamagne said. Like we are watching a manic episode in real time and it's getting progressively worse. And the pain that man is going through, he's projecting, on himself and everyone else. It's not going to end well, he continued. The crew continued to play clips of West ranting on Jones' show. West haphazardly addressed those calling him anti-Semitic, saying, quote, I wake up, I look on my phone, and they say, Ye's anti-Semitic. So I said, okay, well, I'm an anti-Semitic. No, you said I'm anti-Semitic. Get it? Bring in the clowns. There will be clowns. Quote, he's definitely a clown, Charlamagne said, and I know that y'all think this is just about anti-Semitism, but what Kanye is doing right now is more than dangerous. Like, in fact, it actually should be criminal, and black people in all other marginalized communities, if you think for 1 second it will be safe for you in a country where Nazi and white supremacists are empowered, and people are attempting to normalize Hitler, then you out your, I think I was supposed to say, you're out your rabbit-ass mind, he added. Yeah, I don't see how anybody can defend Kanye West. I will say he needs help. Co-host Angela Yee said, two things can be true, though. He can need help, and he can be a Nazi. He can be a bigot, Charlamagne added. That's exactly correct. Now, look, my original major in college was psychology. I was very, very interested in psychology. I eventually switched to political science because I had, a bigger interest in political science over time. And also there was this class that popped up called statistics and psychology, which you had to take if you were going to get a major in psychology. And I'm so bad at math the teacher was a horrible teacher. I couldn't get through the class. I was like, fuck this, I'm dropping out. I'm going to do political science. But anyway, I have a little bit of a background in psychology. And one of the things that I kept mentioning to you guys is go look at the symptoms of bipolar disorder, particularly the manic portion of it. And you'll see Kanye West fits all of them to a T, okay? So let's go through it here. Mania and hypomania. Listen to this, and think about Kanye as we go through this. Mania and hypomania are two distinct types of episodes. But this is from the Mayo Clinic, by the way. But they have the same symptoms. Mania is more severe than hypomania and causes more noticeable problems at work, school, and social activities, as well as relationship difficulties. Mania may also trigger a break from reality, psychosis, and require hospitalization. Both a manic and hypomanic episode include 3 or more of these symptoms. Okay, ready? Abnormally upbeat, jumpy, or wired. Does that sound like Kanye? Increased activity, energy, or agitation. Exaggerated sense of well-being and self-confidence. Euphoria. Does that sound like a guy who says, I'm going to be president even though there's no evidence he's appealing to anybody and his approval rating is fucking 16%? Decreased need for sleep. Oftentimes, with people going through a manic episode, they don't sleep, they can't sleep. And that manifests in worse and worse psychosis as time goes by because your body needs sleep. Unusual talkativeness. You've seen this with Kanye where he keeps, even if the person he's in conversation with wants to butt in, he just like plows right over them. Racing thoughts. Distractibility. Poor decision-making, for example, going on buying sprees, taking sexual risks, or making foolish investments. Poor decision-making, like going on every talk show that will have you and saying, I love Hitler. Poor decision-making, like running for president when you ran the last time and got 60,000 votes. So, look, eventually, he will crash from this manic episode, and then he'll be in a depressive episode. And it will be devastating. And so, look, he's a bigot, he's a Nazi, he's an anti-Semite. There's no doubt about any of those things. He also is going through a complete mental breakdown in front of the world, and we're all just sort of watching it. So, man, I don't know how else to say it, but homeboy needs help. He needs help. And I don't know if there's anybody close enough to him to get him help. Shit, if you're Nick Fuentes and you happen to be watching this, for the love of God, man, try to help him out, even though it's probably not going to work. Try to help him out. You have to do it. Because he's completely disconnected from reality now. I mean, it's bad enough. Even a normal person that has bipolar disorder and they're in a manic episode, even they start to think like, God's talking through me, or I'm going to be a billionaire or whatever. With Kanye, he actually was a billionaire and he is an A-list celebrity. So he already has that. There's a little bit of grounding to this idea that, I'm special. And then add on top of that the mania and the psychosis and the disconnection from reality, and all of a sudden you get a guy who's praising Hitler and thinks, I'm still going to be president of the United States. Like, what? So he's going to need help when he's going through that depressive episode. And I think Charlamagne's right. I think Ben's right. You hate to see it, but there's a very good chance that if he doesn't get help, he's not going to be around much longer. If you want to see me and Crystal Ball interview legends like Noam Chomsky, Cornel West, and more, subscribe to Crystal Kyle and Friends on Substack. $5 a month gets you the video version a day early. Remember, we take 0 ad dollars for this podcast. Or you can sign up on Substack for free and get the audio version a day later. Link in the video description box below.